imagine, because the greatest tool you have as a writer is imagination. And normally what stops an imagination is a negating, a no. Welcome back to the class. In our last lessons, we talked about, of course, monologue, character, and what defines a monologue in terms of who are they speaking to? Because everything really basically is dialogue. No matter if you're by yourself in a room, you have a dialogue. It's actually with yourself. So the whole condition of the human experience is we're in community. There's dialogue happening. Very seldom is it ever one person alone. Case in point, Robinson Crusoe, A Man Alone, or books written in that kind of perspective of thinking and talking to oneself. But when it comes to the next aspect of writing, and it's called the scene. Now, one thing what I stressed last time is a lot of times you can relax when it comes to the process of writing. It seems daunting, I could never write a 1,000-page book or a 110-page screenplay or all those sort of things until you do. And that is the favorite part of every writer, is to have it written. The process of writing, when any writer sits down and looks at it, is daunting. And one of the things I want to do is demystify this writing process and take a little out of the homework of writing, because many times people look at writing as being back in school. It's an assignment. And when you're a professional writer, it becomes that too. I'm here in Chicago writing a screenplay. I have an assignment. Being in Chicago, it's cold, so that affects my writing. Being in a hotel, it affects my writing. Seeing people who I encounter affects my writing. We're all affected by what we encounter, what we see. It's an organic process to be a writer, because you are the tool. You are the interpretation. You are the inspiration. And the inspiration many times will be outside of you, and the inspiration will come. And that's why a lot of times writers don't have a huge ego about writing, because many times writers write thinking that they're a scribe. Not a great writer, a scribe. I mean, look at some of the best dialogue out there in scenes. It almost seems like you're a fly on the wall. It almost seems like it wasn't written by anyone. Dialogue, when well done, has mistakes in it. Because no one speaks in proper grammar every time. People speak with accents and deformities in their body and age and all these 1,000 things that make up a character affect how they speak. One of the ways I approach acting is as an actor. I've been an actor for many years and I understand it. Acting, a lot of times an actor will tell you they don't know the role character yet until they wear the right shoes. And you think about that. I don't know the character until I wear the right shoes, until I find the shoes. A lot of times in real life, we play characters. I remember I had a job in a network, and I was vice president of development. And they knew I came from an artistic background. They knew I had been an actor and all those different things. And now I was in the corporate world. And I wore a suit. And I went to the meetings. I'd have a suit on, and I'd look professional, and I'd drive a professional car and all that sort of thing. And one day, one of the executives turned to me and said, "Wait a minute. That suit is your costume. You're playing executive." And I had to laugh to myself. I thought, you're absolutely right. It affects me. Me wearing a suit in a professional sitting and has a different effect on me as well as someone else. Dressing for the part. And we do that in life. We play many characters in life. And even Shakespeare says that we're many characters in life, and we play actors. We enter a stage, we exit a stage. It's stage, and life is a stage. So in looking at this scene, you have to find the character. And that character will come to you. And it's coming to you organically inside of you. It's not that you approach it and you go, I'm going to write. Oh, I'm going to write. Let the story come to you. Let the dialogue come to you. Don't fight it. Accept it. Accept it's not you. You are not the writer. The writer is outside you. The writer is circumstance. The writer is fate in a way. Serendipity. You find great stories and you hear them and you listen to them, and that will help you in a scene. So when you have a scene, you have to develop one character. And if it's just a two-character scene, develop a second character. Know everything about them. Age, um, height, physicality, education, all the things that make a three-dimensional human being. And that helps you avoid stereotypes and avoids characters that have been seen before. In other words, look at characters, study them, and that will be a new character. Think about it. Why does someone do something? And it's the complexity of a life. If you read biographies, they're great to read. You start to understand a life. Take myself, for instance. I went to school, I got a BA and an MFA later in life. I went back to school. Here I am, the oldest guy in the classroom, and people thought I was a convict or something and had returned to school. That's what they thought. Some of them would come up to me, want to know stories. I actually took a class that was Chicano studies, and many of them asked me what the history was because they assumed I knew it and assumed I had been part of the history. Now, to a 19-year-old kid, they assumed I knew Pancho Villa in a Chicano studies class. But the truth is, I must have seemed very old to them. I'm not that old, but to them, their perception, I was very old. We talk about perspective and perception. In their perception, I was very old. In my perception, I wasn't very old. Perspective is someone looking at two people outside and seeing that one is kind of old and one is kind of young, and somewhere in the middle lies the truth. And as writers, we try to find the truth. We're the perspective outside. So take a look at your characters and develop them that way. Their age, occupation, history, what their dreams are in the future, what is their objective, and what is their obstacle. Very simply, what is their objective and what is their obstacle? If you look at it this way, as simple as this, what do you want? What does that character want? One of the useful things in learning about sales is actually you try to give people what they want. Simple sales question. Would you prefer a laundry detergent is actually better able to whiten your clothes for less the price than the last one? It's new and improved. You always hear that advertising expression, new and improved. It constantly we're selling in this world, and we see it in advertising. New and improved, all those things that are catchphrases. So see what that character wants. What do they want? And just how advertising and marketing goes into fact gives a consumer what they want and what they need, to want and need. Look at the same character and see the same thing. What does this character want? But its perspective is really what do they need? Charles Dickens did Ebenezer Scrooge. And what did Ebenezer Scrooge want? He wanted money, perspective. What did he need? He needed to realize that his business should have been humanity, not a dollar. And he learns forgiveness and grace, and he's changed. Look at his journey from bah humbug. Are there not workhouses for the poor? Are there not poor houses, jails? Yes, there are. And he's taught mercy. And his journey is, by the time it's done, is that he wants to save Tiny Tim desperately. He wants to help Bob Cratchit's family. He becomes a changed man and cares about his family. What things to him didn't matter now matter. What an amazing change this character went through. And as you write characters and as their scenes are, each one leads to more and more of a journey of an objective against an obstacle. The conclusion is in the end of Charles Dickens' Ebenezer Scrooge. He sees that the man has changed. That's a thing we all go through. Grace, change. Characters are not stagnant. Characters are growing. And you have to look at a character and wonder why they're growing in what area, or what lessons they need to learn, and what lessons they're not learning, and how do they grow? How do they grow? So in this, remember, it's not you, it's your inspiration. It's your muse. It's the voice you hear, the quiet voice. It's the scene you may stumble upon and see. That's the beauty of writing. It's not up to you. It's what you find. If you're a gold miner, it's not up to you. It may be the finding the gold or not finding the gold. Think about it. There was a miner in a diamond mine in Africa. He noticed a corner of the eye. He saw a little glint. Didn't think about it much. Later, investigated again. Saw the diamond. There was a diamond in it, and actually, it was one of the largest diamonds they ever found. If he hadn't looked again, they might have uh, lost that opportunity. So be aware in your life of the stories that are coming out that you might hear and you might wonder about. And it's from a myriad of different directions that come at you. And just like I said in the last one, how 3 stories I found just on my journey here to Chicago. Even in my reading, there was a story I found. I read about the great Muslim champion, Saladin. This is during the time of the Crusades and a time of great conflict between Christians and Muslims, some of the worst in the world at that time. And we see it today. It's in the news every day. And I read a story about Saladin. Saladin, this great general, had a huge army, and he wanted to take Jerusalem. And he first started a fight with Jerusalem, and he went out in the plains, and the Crusaders, with their pride, said they're going to take Saladin. They went after him, and they went into the desert, and Saladin fought them there after they'd spent days in the desert with no water. He won. A brilliant tactician. He figured they don't have the water. They, filled with pride and religious zeal, thought they could win. Saladin returned back to Jerusalem. Now it had very few defenders, and he could ransack Jerusalem and destroy the entire city. And he'd go into Jerusalem and destroy the Christian monuments as well. Saladin had went against men that were outgunned and without arms, basically. And they were filled with women and children and pilgrims. And the commander of Jerusalem fought hard and fought well. And he said to Saladin, I'm going to fight to my last man to protect Jerusalem. And Saladin, in his wisdom, realized that there's a better way. Negotiate. Saladin was a good, generous man and was known for that, and said, if you leave Jerusalem and bring your knights with you and the women and children and the pilgrims, we will not harm them. We will give you safe passage. You have my word. And we will not destroy the Christian monuments in there. So Saladin did that. The people left. He didn't sack Jerusalem. He actually said when he went in there, and the Muslims, his armies and invaders were angry, and they wanted to destroy Jerusalem and destroy the Christian monuments, because these Christian monuments was the reason the Christian people came there. You know, 2 different religions, very similar in some ways. In the Muslim religion, it was a Hajj. You had to go on a journey. The Christian religion, it was important to visit the Holy Land and visit these relics. So there's a site in Jerusalem called the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So in this church, this is where Jesus was buried. They had a church and a monument to it. And Saladin said, I want these 2 Muslim brothers to watch over this church. And I want you and your descendants to protect this church against anything and anyone, whether Muslim, Christian, Jew, whatever religion. And it will be a place that is holy and a place that will be watched by us. And these two brothers did that. And they were his warriors and strong fighters, and they protected the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Those two brothers and their descendants to this day in Jerusalem still protect that church. They still protect that church and allow that church to be used by Christians or any other religious group in peace and harmony for centuries. What a great story. And that story forces me to still dig deeper into that. How could they do that? How could that history still be living today? I've been to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. It's amazing. That's living history. I've walked through the streets of Mexico City, the Zocalo, and seen the Templo Mayor. And in my lifetime, I've seen that history of a conquest. History is all around us. Stories are all around us. Humanity is all around us, and all its infinite myriad of different changes of poor, rich, brave, strong. As writers, we're not moralists, we're observers. And writers need to be aware to find a great story and investigate further and taking apart the layers and layers and layers. And that's a scene between two people. What does one want? What does one want? What is one's objective? What's one objective? Which one's obstacle? How is this person keeping that person from that? Or joining them to get that together on this journey of story. So when you're done with the scene, as two people sit and talk, it may move it to another point. It may add information, but it'll keep the story going forward. And think about this, that the scene's that way. And for that reason, you want to look at your scene and in not the writing, this is the inspiration part. The rewriting is the writing part. Is what the person's saying necessary? Is this information not heard before? Is this something we haven't heard before? Is this something that's understood by the other person? All the layers of that. Just think of it. Language. If I say, how are you today? That's one hell of a question. If I say, how are you today, to an inmate in Auschwitz, if I say, how are you today, to a person at a Hollywood party in 1920, if I say, how are you today, to a soldier in Vietnam or Iraq or the Civil War or any other time in history, a Roman legionnaire in Gaul, Germany, Britannia, all these different places, how are you today? Their circumstance will shade that character. Their circumstance will shade their response. This is why writing is organic. It's never the same. And when you find great writing, write it down. Archive it. So in conclusion, you have to look and see that writing is organic, scenes are organic, stories are organic. They're living, breathing creatures that we have to observe and write down. The actual art of writing, when you do it, is brain to hand. But the real writing is inspiration to brain, to heart, to hand. Write with emotion, write freely, write truthfully, write vulnerably. Whatever you do, write. And that's the scene.